queen of musical instruments is what the organ is rightly called. The instrument belonging to the parish of Las Piñas, Metro Manila, furthermore, is in a class of its own. It is the only organ in the world whose pipes are made of bamboo cane. It is a work of art that, after having survived typhoons, earthquakes, wars, and revolutions, continues to serve the parish of St. Joseph today as 160 years ago. The history of the organ is closely connected with that of the community, which has been a parish since 1775. Las Piñas had become independent 13 years previously. Till then, it had belonged to the neighboring Paranak. The parish was served by the Augustinians there until 1795. Up until the present day, the village-like character of the place, away from the main street, has been maintained. The people of Las Piñas have been rather bypassed by so-called progress. Little is known of the early settlement of the lagoon. Fishing, farming, and salt mining were the main sources of income. Today, the megalopolis of Manila continues to devour the surrounding countryside. In the course of land reclamation, the lagoon is gradually being filled in, the saltworks are disappearing, and fishing has virtually come to a halt. Nevertheless, this parish seems to have a cohesion, a center with a continuing strength. As an example, Las Piñas boasts a private school, which, according to American custom, combines a kindergarten, elementary and high school, and the St. Joseph's Academy under one roof. Over 3,000 pupils attend until they are ready for college. The Spiritus rector, Father Leo Renier, and his brother in orders, Father Mark, are not to be envied. New buildings, overdue renovations, and having to acquire the necessary funds, along with the care of such a large school, are difficult tasks in a relatively poor parish. But conditions such as these demand qualities that can't be bought: initiative and solidarity. When it became clear in the early 70s that the repair of the roof was unavoidable, the parish decided to completely renovate the entire church. After hundreds of man-hours, what is assumed to have been the original shape of the church is exposed under the direction of an architect, Francisco Manoza. Almost all parishioners take part in this, so to speak, dirty work. The fact that this parish considers itself a community is grounded in its 200-year-old history. Neither church nor organ would have come into existence had it not been for that consciousness. The church building was finished in 1816 after 6 years of construction work, the first church service having taken place 3 years earlier in the baptistry. Because of amateur restoration work, the church lost more and more of its original form. Besides the usual traces left by age and climate, earthquakes and typhoons took their toll. The church swayed, but never fell. Makeshift repairs were made again and again. At last, grayish plaster covered up the simple beauty of the building. However, after 2.5 years, the church shone inside and out in its original splendor. Many church furnishings also outlasted time and earthquakes, so that the church appears today almost exactly as it did originally, a gem which has become a tourist attraction in Manila. For the people here, the church is what it has always been, their center, and as during the past 200 years, the patron saint of the parish, St. Joseph, continues to make his rounds, stopping off with every family. As everywhere in the world, in the midst of din and noise, even more so in Las Piñas, for it lies in the flight path of Manila's International Airport, the church was, and still is, an oasis of tranquility and reflection. It is a historical curiosity that in the same year the parish was founded, 1762, the man who was to build the church and organ was born in distant Spain. His name, Diego Cera. Little is known about him, as scores of documents were destroyed in the turmoil of the Spanish Revolution. Who was this strikingly exceptional man? The Diego Cera research has in recent years begun to shed light upon the subject. He is described as a man and priest of stature who was not only able to motivate and inspire people, a prerequisite for the fulfillment of a missionary priest's duties. With his myriad talents, he could just as easily have become an excellent scientist, technician, or musician. He was an organist at his convent in Spain. His knowledge of organ building must have been that of a master's. It is not yet sure whether he gained it in Spain or during his stay in Mexico. His skills culminate in his masterpiece, the bamboo organ. Before that, he had already built 2 organs, a small one for the first church in Las Piñas, which was in use until 1813, and a second large organ for the Augustinian church San Nicolas in Intramuros, in the heart of Manila, which already had a bamboo stop. The bamboo organ is an excellent example of how cultures can enrich one another. Even though it was built in the Philippines of typical local materials for Filipinos, its traces lead to Graus, still a small town in the province of Huesca in the Spanish Pyrenees. Currently a town of about 6,000 inhabitants, Diego Cera was born here on July 26, 1762. The town's ever-changing history is evident in its buildings, many of which still stand. Graus was often the site of military conflicts. Referred to as Gradus by the Romans, it later fell into the hands of the Moors. In the year 1067, a battle between Christians and Moors took place here, after which Graus came into the possession of the House of Aragon. The nearby monastery, Nuestra Señora de la Pena, was closed years ago and today is merely a tourist attraction. Most recently, Graus suffered greatly during the Spanish Civil War in the 30s. The church, a Roman building, was demolished. All the archives were destroyed. That made the search for Diego Cera all the more difficult. Traces can be found 20 kilometers further on a mountain. Thanks to its location, Roda de Isabena was spared the turmoils of wars and revolutions. Neither Moors nor revolutionaries of modern Spanish history found their way here. Thus the church too, built in the 12th century in late Roman style, maintained its original form both inside and out. The young Diego Cera must have had close ties to this place and this church. Quite probably it was here that his wish to be a priest and missionary was born. He is supposed to have had his first organ lesson on this organ. It was probably built in 1653 and moved and expanded twice over the years. This organ served Diego Cera as a model for the construction of his bamboo organ. It is thanks to the efforts of the music historian and priest Don José Lemiñana in Huesca that in 1975 extensive restoration work was done on this organ, the only historic organ in the Huesca district undamaged by the Civil War. The same year, a remarkable coincidence, in which the restoration of the bamboo organ was successfully completed. The young Diego was evidently so impressed by the organ in Roda de Isabena that upon entering the Benebara convent near Graus, he included organ building among his first studies. His extensive musical training further substantiates the fact that upon entering the Order of Augustinian Recollects in Barcelona, he immediately became organist. He was ordained in this convent, and in 1787, at 24, he took his congregational vows. He was given the name de la Virgen del Carmen. After 3 more years' study in the Benebara convent, he left Spain for good at the end of 1790. He spent a year in Mexico, and in 1792 left for the Philippines as a missionary. In San Sebastian, the Augustinian convent in Quiapo, he completed his practical studies. He built the first piano in the Philippines, later a present for the Queen of Spain. He started to build the great organ at San Nicolas, using bamboo for one of the stops. In 1794, he was called to Mabalacat as parish priest. A year later, the Archbishop of Manila, impressed by Diego's pioneer spirit, left him the new parish of Las Piñas. Immediately, work was begun on a small church of bamboo and nipa with a small one-stop organ. At the same time, the organ in San Nicolas was completed. Land for the present church was bought, and a building plan was drawn up. In 1810, construction of the stone church was begun, which was also to serve as a refuge during typhoons. It was completed in 1816, and work on the bamboo organ was begun. In 1824, with the installation of Spanish trumpets, probably from Spain or Mexico, the organ was completed. In 1829, both church and organ were damaged by earthquakes. The repairs took years. The man to whom Las Piñas owes its fame, Diego Cera, fell seriously ill in 1832 and died the same year. The further history of the organ is of one catastrophe following another. Earthquakes and typhoons, crumbling stones and mortar, and repairs done by amateurs, culminating in the Revolution of 1898, after which the organ was unplayable for 17 years. In 1961, a report stated that the organ could no longer be played.
Als Kind, ich glaube, ich war 7 oder 8 Jahre alt, vielleicht auch 6, habe ich zum ersten Mal von einer Orgel mit Bambuspfeifen gehört. Uns besuchte damals ein steiler Missionar, Father Schablitzky.
I was a boy. I must have been about 7 or 8 years old when I first heard about an organ with bamboo pipes. An SVD father, Father Schablitzky, was visiting my family, and he told us about this organ. We'd always lived right next to the workshop, and I knew, even then as a boy, that organ pipes are made of lead tin, alloy, or of wood. Bamboo, used for this purpose, was unknown to me, and so the wish to see this organ was born. It took almost 30 years, until 1966, we were able to travel to the Philippines and see the actual organ.
Hans-Gert Klais, a third-generation organ builder, is an admirer of the organ-building feats of foreign cultures.
Mein erster Eindruck, als ich die Orgel sah, war, ich muss es zugeben, schockierend. Ich hatte mir doch etwas ganz anderes vorgestellt. Was fand ich vor?
My first impression of the organ was, I must admit, a shock. I had imagined something completely different. And what did I see? A ruin, a practically unplayable organ. an instrument that I, as an organ builder, could clearly see, whatever its condition, could never be musically suited for big concerts. The entire organ was too small and somehow rather exotic. I was shattered. I realized everything would have to be done differently if something were to be made of the instrument.
Die Attraktion der Orgel zu Las Piñas sind zweifelsohne die Bambuspfeifen.
The great attraction of the Las Piñas organ is, without doubt, its bamboo pipes. Bamboo, as I mentioned before, is a material that is never used by Europeans for this purpose. I had believed only tin and lead, or wood, to be suitable for organ pipes. So that was the attraction. To an expert, the incredibly precise workmanship, evident in the construction of the sounding pipes, is proof of not only theoretical, but also of practical expertise. And this is where, so I believe, Diego Cera, the Spanish missionary, together with the Filipinos, accomplished a remarkable feat.
Diego Cera had been living on the Philippines for 20 years before starting work on the bamboo organ. He had already had practice in using bamboo for the construction of pipes on 2 other organs. Bamboo, called Heaven's Blessing in Asia, is a grass. Over 1,000 kinds of bamboo have been categorized, 31 of which grow on the Philippines. Certain types are known to grow to a height of 40 meters in 2 years. The processing and eventual use to which bamboo is put depend on the stage at which it is cut. Its uses are legion. A Chinese scientist counted 1,346. It is indispensable for daily use in receptacles, construction material, methods of transportation, clothing, household items, and musical instruments. Its unique biological structure, a hollow body whose surface is hardened by a high concentration of silicic acid, knots or nodes which appear at specific intervals, and elastic fibers make these uses possible. Diego Cera must have closely examined this material, which grew about him in great abundance. He counteracted its disadvantage, a high susceptibility to insects because of its sap's high sugar content, by burying it in beach sand for a year. The salt water replaces the sugary sap, a method of conservation which has yet to be improved upon. Its hollow body makes bamboo predestined to be a musical instrument. Wherever it grows, all kinds of musical instruments have been made out of it since ancient times, also on the Philippines. Perhaps Diego Cera was inspired by the sounds these instruments make. One thing is for sure, bamboo was the only available material out of which to make organ pipes. Thus, Diego Cera succeeded in forging a link between European and Asian culture.
Here we have a part of a bamboo pipe, the lower labium and the upper labium. The lower labium has already been repaired because the organ pipe was not speaking properly. Here, a new piece from a different cane has been inserted, a very fine bit of repair work. However, the pipe still wouldn't sound because each bamboo cane reacts differently to variations in humidity. And so, one shouldn't risk using pieces from different bamboo canes in one and the same pipe. From a technical point of view, the organ in Las Piñas is entirely a traditionally built instrument. The organ is at the back of the church, where the nave joins the side aisle on a small constructed gallery. The organ consists of 2 parts. One is worked by the manual, played by hand. The other is worked by the pedals, played by foot. As in all traditionally built organs, we have the action which connects the manual and the pedals with the valves. We have the wind chests. As already mentioned, we have, in this organ, bamboo pipes and even a high-mounted cornet in the manual, as found above all in Spain and France, but sometimes also in Germany. We have bellows, which produce the wind pressure and represent the lungs of the organ. Everything is completely traditional. This organ has an added peculiarity, no doubt a consequence of using the material bamboo. Bamboo cannot be found in every required size and diameter, and so all the stops repeat in the middle of every octave in order to be able to use bamboo also in the bass. The back view shows us pedal pipes, and also the bamboo pipes, constructed by Diego Cera, and which he had hoped to employ as reed pipes, but evidently he didn't succeed.
747 sounding pipes lend the instrument its distinctive tonal color. The organ is equipped with 1,031 pipes and a total of 24 stop combinations. As Hans-Gert Klais explained, the organ was built according to Spanish organ building tradition. Of particular note is the repetition of octaves, enlarging the tonal range, as a certain pitch cannot be reached with bamboo. The secondary stop, pajaritos, which imitates birds' calls, also to be found in European-built organs, was enlarged by Diego Cera, probably in order to resemble tropical birds' calls. The high-mounted five-fold corneta proves itself a resounding solo stop and is intonated accordingly. It was a minor stroke of organ-building genius to have constructed this out of bamboo. The attempt to make the horizontal reed Spanish horn out of bamboo was obviously a failure. These 122 non-sounding pipes are now placed at the back of the organ. The only possible point to extensive restoration would have been to restore the original condition of the bamboo organ. The road there was long and difficult. After several visits, Hans-Gert Klais made an extensive report to the Philippine authorities. Contact was maintained, but no concrete agreements were met. In 1969, the Fathers of the Society of the Divine Word handed the parish over to the Congregatio Immaculati Cordis Mariae, a Belgian missionary order. Father Marc Lesage became parish priest, his brother in orders Leo Renier, school principal and responsible for musical activities. They drove forward restoration plans and were able to win over the parish, which had originally planned to enlarge the organ, to restore it in the spirit of Diego Cera. The founding of a committee laid the financial groundwork, and permission was given to take the instrument out of the country. In June 1973, the contract of restoration was signed with the Klais firm. The organ can be dismantled. For financial reasons, the original idea of having the organ restored on the spot was abandoned. A large part of the organ-building firm, including technical equipment and personnel, would have had to be translocated, and costs would have doubled. And so the organ is dismantled by experts from the Klais firm with local help. Its parts are registered and numbered. The pipes are prepared for transportation to Japan. This decision was made in view of the fact that Japanese were also trained in organ building at the Klais firm. They were able to make repairs on the pipes as they had already had relevant experience with bamboo. The precious cargo is transported in specially constructed crates. A Belgian airline undertook the transport to Japan free of charge. The remaining parts travel by ship to Germany on July 28, 1973. The transport is made by the Hapag-Lloyd firm, also free of charge. The Philippine ambassador, His Excellency Mauro Calingo, symbolically opens the first crate late in 1973 in Bonn. Painstaking preparations had to be made at the organ workshop in Bonn. Among them was a climate chamber installed by a firm in Aachen, which simulated Philippine climate conditions, so that at a temperature of 28 degrees Celsius, 85% humidity was standardized. Klais documented and published the work done. The damage done to the instrument by improper restoration was sometimes graver than that caused by age. The arising difficulties were tackled with verve, with the help and support of experts, also those from other disciplines. For example, extensive laboratory analysis was necessary in order to determine what types of glue had been used. Types of wood that were no longer to be found on the Philippines had to be acquired from Brazil. The repaired pipes arrived from Japan. 53 had to be completely renewed. 33 of the 122 tin pipes were replaced in the Klais workshop. The restoration took 18 months, after which reconstruction of the organ could begin. On February 18, 1975, everything was ready at last. The organ was shown to 400 selected guests. His Excellency Mauro Calingo, the Philippine ambassador, proudly announced,
"My wife and I are delighted to welcome you to this concert hall recital featuring the famous bamboo organ of Las Piñas, the one and only bamboo organ in the world today."
Wolfgang Irms, organist at the cathedral in Trier and co-initiator of the restoration, played the first concert on the renewed organ. He remained true to the instrument and was one of the founding fathers of the organ festival in Las Piñas. The organ was dismantled, packed into thermal crates, and sent on its way home. First by train to Brussels, from where Sabena once again took over the transport by air to Manila. On March 13, 1975, the precious freight arrives in Manila. A great moment for Father Mark and Father Leo, who can barely conceal their joy and excitement. In order to ensure that nothing goes wrong at the last moment, they try to keep the unloading under control. The load consisted of 12 crates in all. Las Piñas, March 16, 1975. A police cordon just like at a state visit. People in a festive mood border the streets. Las Piñas celebrates the return of its queen, the queen of instruments with pomp and splendor, a truly royal reception. The story of Diego Cera and his organ is portrayed on floats. The parish has every reason to include itself in the celebrations, and all trades are represented. The street, normally overflowing with the noise of traffic, belongs to the citizens of Las Piñas today. The procession approaches its highlight. After 6 weeks, the organ is rebuilt and back in its old place. Upon arriving for the inauguration and first gala concert, Hans-Gert Klais and his wife get a similarly overwhelming reception.
This is just an expression of our gratitude to you, because we know
Las Piñas insists on making Hans-Gert Klais an honorary citizen, and he is presented with the key to the city.
All that was 10 years ago. Despite all the effort, worry, and bother it entailed, I would greatly regret it if I'd missed the opportunity of working on this project. The same goes for my co-workers. My encounter with the bamboo organ in Las Piñas and with the people there has truly enriched my life.
After celebrations, everyday life inevitably returns. Its fame notwithstanding, the organ is once again doing the work it was made to do, serving the parish, giving musical form to the liturgy, ad Majorem Dei Gloriam, to the greater glory of God. The organ enters the limelight only once a year, after Christmas. Since its restoration, the Las Piñas Organ Festival takes place yearly. Famous artists attend, mainly from Europe. Not only the organ, but Donna Ofrascio, music teacher and resident organist, emerges from service to the parish and enters the public eye. During the 1983 festival, the world-famous Bamboo Orchestra under Victor Toledo and the bamboo organ came together for the first time. The harmony of the different tonal bodies can also be seen symbolically. A better integration of two mutually foreign cultures can hardly be imagined. This year, the 10th Organ Festival of Las Piñas took place in the same year that several great musicians are celebrating anniversaries: Schütz, Scarlatti, Bach, and Handel. 10 Years Organ Festival. Anniversaries are a good occasion for a look into the future as well as to the past. The brainchild of Wolfgang Röms, the Organ Festival has had many positive results. Different cultures get to know one another better, nations draw nearer, a result that could already be observed at the restoration of the organ. Without international involvement, financial as well as spiritual, none of this would have been possible. At this point, the Goethe-Institut and the then director of the Manila House, Hubertus Kühne, who together with Wolfgang Röms guaranteed a continuation of the tradition by making it possible for young Filipinos to train as organists, deserve special mention. Today, an Austrian foundation under Johann Trummer has also partially taken on this task. The gala at the opening of the festival brings artists and philanthropists of international renown together. Festivals that are not subsidized by governments can hardly be financed by their organizers alone. In this case, the parish of Las Piñas. Here too, international support is required. Living proof of what began under Diego Cera could be shown here. The forging of a link between different cultures. The main attraction of this year's gala was Handel's concert for organ number 13 in F major, The Cuckoo and the Nightingale, a piece that because of its musical structure is particularly suited to this instrument. Las Piñas owes one of its great moments to the soloist Edgar Kropp, now one of the world's best organists, a master on a master instrument.